We are recording. What episode is this? I keep forgetting to check the episodes before we record.
You said 12 in the last one, and I'm pretty sure it was 13.
Wait, are you sure this is not 13?
I think this is 14.
This is not a good start.
We should do better at this.
We better start.
This is episode 13.
Is this episode 13? So Eddie's throwing me off.
This is episode 13.
All right, so lucky number 13. Hell yeah. All right. Well, see, we should have kept the 13 for you, Dan, on your props. But what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? You are listening to episode 13, maybe 14, could be 12, but we believe it's episode 13 of the podcast, brought to you by Chop Dog. Dog is in DAWG, and our friends at Get20. Download the new app. Hell yeah, Dan is like celebrating victory. He's now in the App Store, so you have to download it. We have actually a very, very exciting episode. We have Miss Christy Pitts from Verizon Ventures, are you in Oakland as of this very moment?
Hi, everybody. I don't know. The audio just cut out, but It's my time to say what's up. I'm excited to be here.
Are you in Oakland as of this moment, or are you in San Francisco when you're in Verizon Ventures, or in a completely obscure location?
I'm in San Francisco looking at Oakland across the bay.
So when you're not in Oakland, you're just staring at Oakland.
Yes. Oakland on my mind.
we will make multiple Oakland references on this episode. So
yes,
just a fair warning to all the listeners at home. But also, we have Eddie Contento back. I feel like it's been a little hiatus for Mr. Eddie Contento. So
it was one episode. How's it going?
Well, you see, Dan, before we started recording, told me to fire you because you missed the episode. So that was what Dan told me. Christy was a witness; she heard it. So
I did listen to the last episode, and I'm now on to Dan and his ulterior motives.
Dan's the schemer.
Every episode.
Dan has a long-term plan for all the entrepreneurs listening at home. You too can play in House of Cards style on any podcast.
Call me Frank Underwood.
All right, so with this all let's talk a little bit, Christy, about yourself. So for those who were actually like me when we first met that never knew that Verizon Ventures existed, could you give everyone a little context of what Verizon Ventures is, and primarily more about what you guys are all about, trying to do, what you're looking for companies in your portfolio, your mission, etc.?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So Verizon Ventures is the corporate venture capital arm for Verizon, and our mission is to turn startups into strategic assets. So that's it might be a little bit hard to understand, so let me break it down. So that means that we deploy capital and we invest in startups. We're stage agnostic, so we'll invest at basically any stage, although we typically invest around Series A or Series B. It means that we attract the best startups to our portfolio, and then we provide the best value for them and help to realize the strategic portion of the relationship between Verizon and the startup. So you can always check out VerizonVentures.com, little plug. Imagine it said VerizonVentures.com right there.
Well, we have show notes, so one day it'll be in all the show notes, but we'll pretend it's also in a bubble on the screen.
If we get rid of Eddie, we can make a spot for the link.
Oh, awesome.
No, okay. Just
glad we got there already.
Strategically, it's not a bad idea.
All right, Dan.
Yeah, so that's what Verizon Ventures does.
So for someone who's never been in that situation before, are these startups seeking you out? Or are you guys kind of scouting, listening into the industry and kind of seeing what the potential is like?
Both. So startups reach out to us, and we also reach out to them based on different scenarios. So one of the things that we do for the ventures team is we do something called the Verizon Ventures Forum, which is an event with our executive leadership team. We do it about once a quarter, and we'll have it around a different theme. So, for example, one of the themes that we did this late last year was enterprise IoT, and we reach out to startups that we feel like are a good fit for the enterprise IoT space, and then they pitch to our senior executives. Oftentimes, after the venture forum, we might end up having a follow-on investment in one of those companies as well.
So I'm curious.
Like through the website or LinkedIn or through a common network inspection.
So I'm curious, how long has Verizon Ventures been a thing? Like, how long has this been under Verizon for?
So I don't think we have like an official birthday, if you will.
You just magically showed up one day. It was like,
we were just like,
here we are.
Hey. No, so we have been investing actively for a few years, like 3 to 5 years, but we don't. Prior to really investing actively, we had some investments that were really strategic investments. So we've invested in over 60 companies so far, and then we've ramped up our activity. So for example, in 2016, we've already invested more so far this year than we did in all of last year. So it kind of like grew out of itself, gained momentum as Verizon changed as well. And then now we're really like pedal to the metal, making some investments.
So one of my big questions is, where are you investing? Is it primarily in the Bay Area, or you guys focus wherever an opportunity presents itself? Like, what's your main focus?
Chicago? No.
Chicago. I mean, it all depends on the Blackhawks versus the Sharks. No, I'm just kidding. So we're like, I would say we're geo-agnostic, if that's a term. So the majority of our investments are in the Bay Area or on the West Coast, but we have investments. We have a portfolio company in Reno. We have a portfolio company. We have plenty of companies on the East Coast. We have some in Austin, some in Portland, and we have some internationally as well. So there's no one specific geographic area that we invest in.
So I want to go over to the actual people that you're partnered with, like the companies in your portfolio and you're investing.
Yeah.
What kind of companies are you like working with right now? Like, what companies would we know of? And as well, a lot of like Verizon Ventures, I'm assuming, does the same thing, as you'll see people like Google Ventures, these type of ventures under big umbrellas where the goal is to invest in people who are also going to complement what they are doing and give them the connections through their industry. So I'm assuming Verizon probably has the same initiative here, where we want to work with companies that we can use their own technologies or service or people in order to help benefit us and help segue in those industries. So a little two-sided question here, but I'm curious. I'm sure they're probably not mutually.
Sure. So on the first, okay, just to make sure I'm clear on the question. So we invest for strategic purposes similar to Google, right? So the way we look at it is, what are the investments we have that can help reinforce our existing business that we're in? What can help us move into like an adjacent business that we're not in today, but maybe it makes sense or there's something developing there? And then what's way out there, like the moonshot frontier stuff? And maybe like, depending on how everything shakes out, there's a business for this there in the future. So we break our investments up into those three categories. And because we're Verizon, we touch a lot of different places. So we like to structure our investments to align with our business units. And some of the important areas that we're investing in right now are in IoT. So two of the portfolio companies that I'm super excited to have in the portfolio are Filament and Vinium. Those are two IoT companies that are going to be disruptive. You may never know it as a consumer, but it will be in the background, potentially changing the way you connect to things and the way you manage your life. We also invest in media and content. So one really cool investment that we recently made in that space is called MeToo, which is like a content company for Latino millennials. And I follow them on Facebook, and they have this super hilarious video of a selenogram. So I would check out MeToo if I were you. We also invest in network infrastructure technology. So one recent portfolio company is called Kumu, Kumu. And they do, basically, if you think about wireless spectrum, which I'm sure you guys are like every day, wake up in the morning and you're like, what's happening with wireless spectrum?
It's every minute of the minute.
Every minute of the day. So Kumu allows for wireless companies to get double productivity with spectrum, so that when you're using your devices or when there's the Internet of Things deployment, the network allocation is much more efficient. So I could keep going, but there's we get to touch a lot of different areas. Another one is like cloud and big data. So that's fun for us too. And pretty much anything that you hear a lot of buzz about in the investment world, we're probably looking at it, because some way or another, it might touch our network or it might touch one of the businesses that we're in.
So I know what's like really trending right now for my friends in the VC world. Everyone wants to get the first big bot to blow up, because that seems to be the trendy thing. So I'm curious, is that even something you guys are focused on too? Or do you like try to follow those type of trends as well? Or do you focus more just true businesses opportunities versus here's where the market seems to be going, let's just look into it, like, because everyone's talking about it type mindset?
Yeah, so I think it kind of converges. So you have like the tech that's being developed, and then you have our business. And because our business is so broad, they come together. So like bots, for example, could help us in a majority of ways. Like we could be more efficient in some of the things that we already do. Like if you think about the fact that we have 110 million customers that are using Verizon products today, like Verizon phones on our wireless network, a bot could help them interact with our company in a way that's easier and a better experience for them. So that makes sense. Or you could think for a product that we might have in development, that a bot would be helpful for that product development team too. And bots have a lot of buzz. So it's kind of like both things. Like things get a lot of buzz in the market, and then we also could use bots, or bots might make strategic investment for us too.
So
You guys.
one of the things is I was having dialogue earlier with Greg Mayer. He's a mentor over at TechStars in
Cool.
Seattle. So he's originally from Philly. So go Philly. Go 76ers, everyone. So one of the things he was talking to me about bots, I'm curious for maybe if you guys have this shared sentiment or maybe it's more personal. Is he's looking for the more humanized bots. So he says one of the things that is concerns is the bots that like treat more like this is clearly a bot versus almost replacing human interaction in certain ways, like a customer service orientated, but doing it in a way where it feels even better than dealing with a person. Like it's just quicker, it's knowing. So I'm curious what your perspective or maybe Verizon's perspective is on where you guys believe, hey, these might be opportunities we see bots like truly taking advantage of that maybe interest you guys, or maybe you're talking internally, like we're trying to find these opportunities, or, just where your opinion is when it comes to anything.
Yeah, so I should start by saying that I haven't done a lot of work in bots, and I don't know Verizon's official position in bots. So I'm definitely not trying to speak for all of Verizon here.
You are officially the official position in bots today.
You are an official bot, CBO, Chief Bot Officer. So congratulations.
Chief Bot Officer. That was a little robot dance for you. Okay, so we think that, so from a bot perspective, we have, let's see. I do agree with the sentiment in a way that if you're going to use a bot to facilitate a human transaction, that the bot needs to feel human or at least provide a good experience. So I think if you think about the ways that you use different technology in your life, in some cases, you can use that technology and you don't need to have any type of human experience about it in order to feel a sense of utility. So, for example, like if you book an OpenTable reservation, right? You just go online, you book the reservation, and you're done. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy, right? But if there's something that has some type of emotional thing for you in your life, then you want some type of human interaction with that too. But I think one area that bots might be really exciting for us is in terms of the Internet of Things, and specifically like the industrial Internet of Things. So I mentioned Filament earlier, and Filament uses blockchain technology so that individual sensors on the Internet of Things can transact with each other. So if you think about that, then all of a sudden there's all these other different and interesting use cases, which may not be as consumer oriented, but might really be a big deal in the future.
How often are you connecting your portfolio clients with like other portfolio clients in your portfolio? So like, hey, we think you two might have synergy here that'll benefit each other. Like, is that something that happens often or not as much as it might seem?
Yeah, so this is actually this is a super timely question because I'm a mind
reader after all, so.
In my role in Verizon Ventures, I do venture development, and a large part of that means building value for our existing portfolio companies. So one thing that we just did last week was we had our first town hall meeting where we brought existing portfolio companies together and we introduced them to each other, shared with them everything Verizon Ventures is going to be doing for them, and then like had networking afterwards. So this is like kind of a new area for us, but we're going to be having another Portco town hall soon, and this is like going to be a big part of what we do in the future.
So you're doing you're doing it in person. You're really bringing everyone. Gotcha. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's probably a good question. So if there's a company that comes in with you guys, obviously money is a component, but what are the other types of things that, companies get out of, being under the Verizon Ventures umbrella? Like what's the other value to them beyond the cold, the capital itself?
The cash money.
The cash money. I just watched Breaking Bad, so I
Oh my gosh, did you guys watch Game of Thrones?
I did. And I don't know if I was happy with the episode or disappointed. I'm literally at the definition right now of bittersweet.
Okay, I'm a geek, so you guys got to tell me, do I need to get into this show? Because I haven't gotten into it yet, and
yes.
I'm not sure.
The answer is yes, you do, but also the answer is don't have any emotional attachment to anyone, anytime.
I have heard it's fun to watch Twitter blow up and all the big data around it when those episodes
Honestly, another show I enjoy, not to get off topic here, Silicon Valley, which is immediately on after Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And I love it because the comedy is gold and it just makes fun of our lives completely simultaneously. But the comedy is amazing too. Like even just had nothing to do with what we do. I would love the humor of it. But here's the issue with it is you get such an emotional lull with Game of Thrones to such a emotional high with Silicon Valley, but then Silicon Valley will sucker punch you in a way that you're like, Game of Thrones already killed my heart. Why are you doing this to me? But it's not by like death. It's by watching them make the most stupidest decisions possible and knowing I know 10 startups that made that exact decision that the show is now making fun of. And it's hilarious that that's happening. But anyways, back to the...
Anyways, back... No. I think actually, Dan, when you said that you were a geek, I didn't know if you're a geek or not because I don't really know you. But then you said that the reason why you like to think about Game of Thrones is the amount of big data it generates on social media. And I was like, yes, he is a geek.
I'm an engineer, so I'm a geek in hiding, maybe.
Yeah. Not hiding very well, I guess. Anyways, so back to the question you asked, which is about the value that we provide beyond the capital that we invest. So this is a big part of the reason why somebody would want an investment from Verizon Ventures. And really, I think this applies to anybody taking an investment from anyone. It's kind of a common phrase that money is dumb and it's easy to come by capital. Well, maybe not so easy that anybody can just go raise, but it's true that if you have a startup, you can find an investor, and you need to be very careful about which investors you add and whose money you take. Yep. So when you do try to take an investment from Verizon Wireless, and when we invest in you, or from Verizon Ventures, I'm sorry, we do offer more than just capital. And there are several ways that we help bring value to our portfolio companies. We provide the very first way, and anybody that's taking a strategic investment should think about this, I would say, not just for Verizon Ventures, is the value and resources that the Verizon ecosystem can provide. So if your company is aligned with the strategic goals of Verizon, it should help you enhance your trajectory tremendously by having a strategic investment from Verizon. If you look at your company and you think, I don't know how it fits with Verizon, then it's probably not a good fit to begin with, right? Mm-hmm. Outside of the Verizon ecosystem, we, whenever we make an investment, we usually determine some type of strategic fit before the investment, but afterwards the relationship continues. So because a company is so big with over 100,000 employees in many different business units, there's usually several different ways that a startup can partner, and that's part of my job. So I help the portfolio companies kind of navigate within Verizon and find different paths to make fruitful relationships. And then also we have a lot of value-added services. So we have like discounts on Verizon products, and we will pull, we have a lot of different resources like third-party services as well. And we also will come up with new ideas for portfolio companies, and we'll bounce it off and trial with a few of them. And if you enjoy it, we'll open it for the whole portfolio. So we're always looking for new ways to add value to them.
So your role is kind of ongoing then when you invest. I mean, your role personally, not Verizon Ventures.
Wait, you cut out at the beginning. What did you say?
Your role personally is kind of ongoing once you guys start working with a company.
Yeah, and I think a really good example of this is Bug Labs. So this is an investment we made several years ago in 2011. And Bug Labs is an IoT company that helps IoT hardware companies develop more quickly. And then, so we saw some strategic fit, right? But then last year in 2015, we launched an initiative called ThingSpace, and Bug Labs was one of our first partners on ThingSpace. So it was like 3.5 years-ish between investment and when that partnership was announced. But you could say that now we have provided even more strategic partnership than maybe what we thought of at the beginning.
So what is your average day looking like? Like when you get to the office, what is your day-to-day typically looking like between balancing internal with portfolio clients? Like give us a little insight, like what.
Yeah, so it's easier to describe like a week than a day because every day is different. Sure. And that's one of the things that I love about my job. But I would say within a week, typically I'm going to one or two events that make sense. And that could be anything from like an IoT meetup to something around like the diversity in entrepreneurship and the female ecosystem and venture capital and entrepreneurship. There's a lot of balancing projects. So I mentioned before we went on air that I was working on a project with a Verizon team in Belgium. That was actually a team that was testing out some technology from one of our portfolio companies to see if they wanted to do a relationship with a portfolio company. So there's a lot of that, which is like project management and just keep coordinating meetings and moving projects along. And then there's also like a marketing and communications element. So reaching out outside of Verizon Ventures to connect with new startups and make sure they know about us. And when they're in the right spaces, that it makes sure if we need an introduction, we can get one. And then also responding to anything that comes in. So it's a balance, but it's a lot of fun.
So let's go a little bit more into you. How did you get involved to where you ended up in this role at Verizon Ventures? Like, what is your background that brought you there?
Josh is actually a mind reader today.
Yes. Okay. So so I found out about the Verizon Ventures team because in a past role that I had with Verizon, I was working on a special project where I was coming up with like promotional ways that Verizon could reach out to the startup ecosystem. So I met one of the guys from Verizon Ventures, and we came up with a way to approach incubators and accelerators in the Bay Area. And then we both were able to co-fund some marketing initiatives together. So that's kind of like the corporate answer. The short answer is I'm really passionate about helping startups. I love working in this space and working with entrepreneurs. So when I found out about the Verizon Ventures team, I was like, how can I spend time with you guys? How can I learn more about what you're working on? How can I help you? And then that led to this opportunity.
So I'll let you go first, Eddie. You've been kind of quiet this episode anyway, so I'll let you fill it in.
Well, I don't want to step on Dan's toes. What level of experience do the CEOs or founders that you guys are scouting or investing in typically have? Like, are they, serial entrepreneurs? Do you have any startups that are first-time entrepreneurs?
That's a good question. I don't know if, I think we probably do have startups that are first-time entrepreneurs, but I haven't looked at it from that perspective before. I can tell you they're like typically a little more developed. So we're not usually investing, like we have a lot of relationships that we're excited with incubators and accelerators. So I'll give you an example. Like Techstars IoT is a accelerator that we sponsor that's currently open for application. So if you have an IoT startup and you're interested in accelerator, go check out Techstars because that's happening now. And we're involved with that program. After the startups graduate from there and they develop a little more, then we might be able to come on later in as an investor. Okay. So maybe that answers it in a roundabout way.
Yeah, definitely. And I asked because I'm curious what kind of growth you're seeing out of the leaders of these companies from taking them on and then helping them get through the first couple of years.
Yeah, I think we as a corporate VC, we actually do quite a bit of follow-on investment. So we typically we usually engage and follow on in additional investment opportunities beyond our first check. And I mean, it's everything. The portfolio is pretty large. So we have 60 portfolio companies approximately. So it's everything you can imagine. We see companies scaling and growing. We also see companies that may be in a time like a trough or they might be struggling where we really have to step in and help them out. So it runs the gamut.
I am curious, what is the ratio of companies everyone Verizon Ventures to actually getting funded by you guys? Like, do you have that ratio or is that public knowledge? I am curious, like, how many is, Y Combinator, I forget what it was offhand. It was like 1 out of like 300 will be accepted into like YCom, right? So I'm just curious, like, what is like your output? Because I'm sure you're saying significantly much more no's than you ever are saying yes, just by being the nature of being a VC.
Right, you're right. I don't know what the exact ratio is, so I don't have a number off the top of my mind. But you're exactly right. And it's a really huge volume of inbound. Even like right now on my LinkedIn, I think like over the weekend, I got 3 or 4 people reaching out to me that I've never met before that want me to take a look at their company. So
that actually brings to a follow-up. I've been meaning to ask. So one of the conversations we had when we first met at Startup Grind was how many people out of the blue the second to hear your VC start going into pitch mode? I'm just curious, like, how often is that something happening?
All the time. And I actually just wrote a blog post about it. So if I can give myself another shameless plug, go check out my blog post. 4 questions to answer before you meet with a corporate VC. Because you should do your homework. You should look at those questions, answer them, and then think about how you want to qualify your conversation.
Do you want to talk about them now?
Sure.
I'm stealing these for Get 20, by the way. We should talk after because these are great. We have a platform that connects people, and some of them are VCs and investors with entrepreneurs.
Already started.
I'm totally plugging it because
he's
totally
he's going so right.
Totally relevant because No, it's totally relevant because one of the first learnings we had was that if you don't prepare people and they go to talk to that level, it is so much more detrimental to the type of relationship you're trying to jump into with someone. And for entrepreneurs to start to get in that mindset, like you said, is prepare and be ready, especially have the numbers, which is a huge one. It's worth mentioning. So I would love to hear these questions.
So what happens when we let Dan's company become an official sponsor of the show? He
The
just
alignment is too good.
yeah, it's like 20 minutes of talking about it now.
That was 20
like-
seconds.
That was my plug, Dan. And then what happened? I don't know. No, I'm just kidding.
wanna
Shots fired.
I want to connect you guys.
Okay, so it really just boils down to, it's 4 questions to kind of outline it for people, but it boils down to do your homework. Look at the other ways that the corporate partners with startups. So this is a really big one. Like, this is probably the biggest one that I end up saying over and over and over again ad nauseum, week after week in my job, is if you're looking for an investment from a company, and it's a big company that has a venture capital arm, then they're probably already positioned to partner with startups in several different ways. So like at Verizon, we have a Verizon Innovation Program, and we have a Verizon Partner Program. So look at those things and see if your startup is qualified for that, because oftentimes you can get a commercial relationship and a contract on your own without having to deal with the venture arm of the company. And then when you go on to meet with the venture arm of the company, you already have an established relationship with contacts within that company. Like, if there's any one thing I could recommend, that would be number 1. For the other 3, check out my blog.
Nice. I love that.
I'll give you that one.
All right. I need to ask this question because I am curious. What is the worst setting you've ever been pitched since you started at Verizon Ventures? Like, the worst environment, like, I can't believe you're doing this right now.
Funeral.
Hopefully they're not one of our.
And he's just bringing it very dark early on.
I remember
you gotta
this.
do what you gotta do. You gotta grind.
So I went to the Red Wedding. No, I'm just kidding.
See, no one else is going to get the reference except us two. So.
Game of Thrones.
By the
Okay,
way, that episode, when I watched it, I when there was
Yeah.
no music at the credits, I was just like, I couldn't operate for the rest of that night. So
Yeah.
I love how Game of Thrones has such an impact on your lives.
it really does. Dan, actually, don't start watching it, Dan, because you're running a new company. I don't
Is that a
recommend.
bad idea?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're gonna be like, why have I not worked on my company in 6 weeks? When you
It will suck your life. It will. It will take over your life. And then if you start reading the books, you might as well just give up. Like, you should take a sabbatical.
yeah, like you're at least a semester off of startup land, and
For sure. What were we talking about?
the worst setting you've ever been. In.
Oh, that's right.
And
that's
it's not
right.
a Game
Okay.
of Thrones premiere, so that doesn't count.
Yes.
That would
Okay,
be pretty
so there's actually there was one time, and this is really funny, but I think it might be like a good thing to share with everybody. So I was at a pitch day, which, like, you guys are probably thinking, like, it's a pitch day, you should come to pitch day prepared to take a pitch, right, lady? Like,
Didn't cross my
check
mind.
yourself. So it was at this pitch day, and it was like during a break in the pitches when there was networking, and there were a bunch of booths. And I had been waiting for an urgent message for a project that I was working on. So I'm out of the pitch day, I'm networking, I find a break, I pull up my phone, I'm like this with my phone, and I see immediately there's a response to my message, and I'm like, holy cow, this is like time urgent, sensitive, or important, I have to respond right away. So I start replying to the message, and this person walks up to me and is like, Verizon Ventures, it's great to meet you, and stuck their hand in my face. And it was just like, in that moment, I understand, like, I had stepped to the side a little bit, but that's the point that I'm trying to get at here is, like, if you just use common etiquette, you won't have a bad pitch. Like, if you're making eye contact with somebody and they're not making eye contact with you, that's a hint. Like,
So,
maybe they just have something that they have to take care of. Yeah. Is that a
Is it
bad
bad?
answer?
No,
that's
that's,
great.
that's
Okay.
a great answer.
So,
No, that's learning to read body language. I love it.
so I actually want to go to a second question then, which
Yeah.
I realize you probably don't get as pitched as much as that's probably there's an area in your company that's actually just probably like listening all day, right? Just talking to companies nonstop. So my question for you is, if you're a company listening to this episode right now, or just thinking about pitching to any form of VC, especially a corporate VC that you think is going to be a connection, someone to like, this could be a right fit, how would you position yourself for that initial first impression? Like, how would you say you want to get on the radar of a Verizon Ventures, of a X Ventures, of an XVC? Like, what are
Yeah.
the things you see that stand out from everyone else? Because I'm sure 90% are all the same in practice.
Yeah, the most effective way to get on somebody's radar is via an introduction. So if you don't know that person, go look at LinkedIn. Like, I'm a huge advocate of LinkedIn. You can see in LinkedIn if you are first connections with somebody, second or third connections. So go on LinkedIn and see who you know that knows that person. And if you don't know anybody that knows that person, like if you're a founder that's trying to raise and you don't know anybody that knows VCs, that's your action, is to go start knowing people that know VCs. So go learn, meet other people in the community. Go to meetups, start putting yourself your own best friend when it comes to PR, and then you start to meet those people. You get the introduction, you go from there.
So, what are your thoughts on cold emails?
The problem with cold emails is there's so many of them, it's hard to stand out from the crowd. Like, that's the truth. Same thing with cold LinkedIn messages. It doesn't hurt. I mean, you can say I sent one cold email or I sent one cold LinkedIn message, but how many are you going to have to send before you get a response? As the person's responding to you, the decision maker.
You guys got to stop talking about this because you make me want to keep plugging Get 20.
Dan, you keep it up, I'm booting you. Eddie's replacing you. Actually, I need to add one quick note here, which is there is something going on recently with cold email. So I get like 40, 50 of them a day, just from people asking for startup advice, or they want to pitch us what they're working on, or to comment, hey, Josh, does your company accept equity? Question, which is mind-boggling. Why the hell they would ask a question to a company. But the worst, and this is just a new common thread, I'm curious if you had this because it's pissed me the fuck off. I got to just curse and be upfront about this because that's how mad I am. Is you don't respond to a message, and then immediately after a day later, they send you an animated GIF of someone like tapping the screen, like waiting.
Yes, it's
like,
the worst.
How rude could someone be? Like, do they not realize the gesture? All right, I'm glad to know that I'm not the only one getting these messages because it's so infuriating that I can't believe that's a thing that's happening now. So, all right. So for those contexts who have no idea what I'm talking about, it's when you send me a message, and I'm a busy guy. Like, I don't know if people can see on my screen. Oh, you can't see here. But literally, we'll have 12 to 15 meetings a day, traveling all the time. You know, it's kind of the life of being a CEO of a company with a team and clients, all that fun stuff. So if I don't get to your email right away, it's not because I'm ignoring you. In fact, I respond to all, but just the nature of I get probably 300 messages a day in my inbox. It's impossible me to. So please don't, to anyone, because it sounds like this is a problem that's happening forever throughout. Do not 24 hours later sending message like still waiting, or worse, a animated GIF like you're impatient. Because to you, I just want to hit the spam button and watch you get blacklisted into I can't help when you do that.
If you want to get noticed, then write a song, record it, put it on YouTube, and then send that instead.
That's a great idea. Or
only if you can sing, though.
Eddie,
okay.
No, well, if I can't sing, that'll be even better because now it's really going to stand out because everyone can sing and I can't. No, actually, here's a good one. We had a job application. This is like 3-4 years ago. Eddie, you'll probably remember this.
The wood box one?
Yeah, so we had this like box come to us. We're like, who sent us something? Open it. And it was literally a plaque, like an award plaque. It says, to the world's greatest employer for hiring me. It was pretty much the context of it. And it was like the guy saying, "You're gonna put this on your wall because that's how awesome I'm going to be as an employee."
It was so cool. We unfortunately we didn't need to fill that role at the time, but his I don't know why that happened, but he sent us like a wood version of his resume.
Yeah, it was like a wood resume, a black thing. Like it stands out to this day of like, holy shit, that we've never got anything close to that.
Along those lines, I guess, what's the most creative pitch you've ever witnessed or been pitched?
Oh yeah. Okay. So actually I was just telling my friend about this the other day. So I went to the 500 Startups Demo Day. This is like, I think about a year-ish ago. Don't quote me. Sometime like that. All right. It was Dobies. So do you guys know about Dobies? Yeah.
I feel like I've heard the name.
Okay, so I don't know how many markets they're in, or if they're in Chicago or Philadelphia, but here in San Francisco, you can get Dobies, and it's basically like you get cookies delivered to you, and they're hot cookies. So like if you're gonna have a meeting, like if we were meeting in person, I could have gotten Dobies delivered beforehand. So
it's violently cropping.
Dan's like, you're talking about Get 20 right now for cookies, guys.
On demand is the future.
On demand hot cookies anytime. So the founder is pitching and everyone was like, okay, that's cool. You get a cookie. And then he wraps up the pitch by saying, check under your seat right now. And somehow they had gotten into this auditorium and they had a hot cookie under every single seat. So I like reached under my seat. I opened up the little bag and it was like chocolate chip cookie with melty chocolate chips.
Wow.
Delicious.
How long were they sitting under there? That's crazy.
I don't know. It was still hot.
Were you sure you were at a pitch or a David Blaine show? And now Louis made cookies. Actually,
dude, I would love to see David Blaine like pitch a startup.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
That number one, that'd be cool. But number two, I actually recommended this to a client of ours, Eddie, which is if you want to master a pitch, don't watch other startups pitch. Watch like how watch how comedians pitch, like artists, like when they do things, like not pitch, but just like present. Because presenting, pitching is entertainment value where you're giving because at the end of the day, you're getting the same content. But you can do it in a way which is going to relate more and digest more to someone. It's going to be that much more relatable, that much more stand-up. So, like, of course, I'm like, go watch a comedian, and then you go watch someone just drop an F-bomb every 2 words, just drop the mic. But, yeah, I invent magic tricks for Chris Angel, David Blaine, use that angle a lot.
Yeah. If you have that angle, use it.
That would be awesome. So, I believe from my understanding, you've always been in Oakland, right? You pretty much have grown up and raised there? Is that correct?
In the Bay Area. I was born on the East Coast in Virginia, and my family moved to the Bay Area when I was a little girl.
So I just want to put like the Star Wars traitor from the Force Awakens. You traitor.
No.
So I have to ask, why Oakland? What made you decide, especially because you're very passionate about Oakland?
Yeah,
vocal,
I am.
Which is awesome because Eddie and I both fell in love with Oakland, and it's not talked about enough. So, and Eddie actually lived there for a month. So talk a little bit about why Oakland.
Eddie, Oakland is like your first number 13 country of all the countries, right? If you live there, aren't you going to be living in like one different country a month?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. So I'll be definitely returning to Oakland after the year is over. It was one of my favorite cities. I wasn't even in like a nice area at all, but I loved downtown. I loved like all the culture and the art.
Josh, why do you like Oakland?
A few reasons. Number one is I think you're going to have more authentic people there because of its being a lower cost of entry into the Bay Area. So it's almost like where I live here in Philly, which is it's not like terrible, but simultaneously because it's a little bit more undervalued, you're going to get more authentic people, which should be more of quality. Because I'm very vocal about this, which is I love the Bay Area, I love visiting, but there's way too many people there where I feel like I'm talking to a brick wall. They're almost like an artificial intelligence put into a person versus being a real – I'm saying versus a real person.
That's the bots. That's the bots.
That is where the bot revolution is going into people. Welcome to McDonald's. It's not a real person on payroll. It's a humanoid bot. No, so for example, I think I fell in love with it was that night I was telling you before we started recording at Lake Merritt, where literally just seeing people like with his like break dancing in the middle of the night, and like that to me is like this is real. This is not like bullshit. I'm gonna go to some fancy meetup event and eat hot chocolate cookies and pitch to investor environment. And to me, I kind of relate to that a little bit more because I deal with that more or less that majority people day to day. So that the low cost area, which I'm saying low cost and inflation, like in relation to like the Bay Area, obviously it's still expensive as hell compared to everywhere else in the world. But also, come on, they're sports teams. They're like the closest thing to Philadelphia sports fans on the West Coast. So I have full respect for Oakland's.
There you go. Now I don't have to talk about Oakland because you guys did it for me. I moved to Oakland in 2011. So I've been there like 5 years-ish, a little less than 5 years.
I definitely considered it. I had a conversation with a friend that I made out there who lives in the Bay Area. He posted an article recently about how gentrification is crushing the culture and the artistic scene in Oakland, which is really sad, especially for me because I love that so much that I want to move there and be part of it. But by moving there, I'm contributing to the problem. But I want to also combat the problem by contributing to the culture. But I don't know if that's even possible. So it's like, do I do it? Do I move there and try to do my best to help out, or do I just visit and enjoy what's left of it? The culture.
What's left until Christy Pitts showed up.
It's all your fault.
No, I think you're right. There's a lot going on right now with gentrification. It's a hot topic, not just in Oakland, in San Francisco, in Brooklyn. I don't know about this Philadelphia like brunch
Actually,
center.
so where I live right now, 10 years ago, you wouldn't have wanted to walk here. I live in a warehouse that used to be a brewery. Like, that's where I live.
Yeah. So I don't know. I definitely don't have all the answers. I feel like when I approach Oakland, I try to bring more than what I take. That's my point of view. But,
That's good.
you know, it's tough.
That's
it's definitely
doable.
tough.
So what's your favorite
Scenario.
aspect or favorite part of Oakland?
There's a lot. I think one of the best things about Oakland is the weather. So people don't realize this, but Oakland is like a better San Francisco. Like the weather's better. I
So
feel
many
like,
shots being fired on this lapse.
Every single time I would leave my apartment, I would be like, "Oh man, it's 70 degrees, it's beautiful," and
Yeah.
then go across the bay and be freezing because I never brought
Yeah.
my hoodie or jacket.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you guys are so. Josh and I are like,
Yeah,
you guys
we're
are
like,
all babies.
what are you
Like
talking-
60 degrees is like, let's go running and swimming and do
But
all
the
the
thing
things.
is, it's like 10 to 15 degrees different in San Francisco. So you don't
Yeah.
think about it when you leave. You're like, "Oh, this is great weather," and then it's cold.
Yeah, exactly.
Josh, I don't know if you remember when we did Startup Grind the first year. There was a bar we went to. I think you were there. And
Yep.
it was
You and
like
I were in
60
short
degrees
sleeves,
out.
and everyone's wearing
And
like
yeah,
winter
and
coats
they had
and like.
beer pong outside. We're like, you guys want to go play beer pong at this outside bar? And we were super excited. And everyone else is like, no, it's cold. What's wrong with
Yeah,
you?
meanwhile, Dan and I are like in shorts and t-shirts. Like, this is amazing. It's so warm outside. It's like February. What is wrong with you guys?
That wears off eventually. Sorry.
Oh, I understand that the context of if you grow up there or you start living there for multiple years,
Yeah.
it's your climate. Like, there's a reason
Yeah.
the beginning of winter sucks. By the end of it, you kind of get used to the cold, so 40 degrees feels warm. You know?
Yeah.
But if 40 degrees in the middle of summer, you're like, hate yourself, right? Which is hopefully never happens. But I'm saying it's just relation to what your body gets used to.
I actually, I have a question kind of related to the. I know you guys said you're not agnostic to the location for when you guys do investments in startups.
Mm-hmm.
So, I know you guys are like you're an extension of VC Arm. So is this like they don't do the startups come to you guys? Do they work with you guys out of there, or they move there, or is there any type of change for them, or is it literally just here's the capital, here's the resources we can offer within our ecosystem, and then they stay and do their thing?
Yeah, it's more the second. So
Okay.
the startups are usually developed enough so that they already stand on their own, and that means different things. Like I mentioned that we're stage agnostic. So we have a company that we invested in so far this year that was a seed investment, and that company is in an incubator in San Francisco. Then we have other companies that are like, I think we had a Series C investment earlier this year, and that's like pretty developed company with a lot of employees, multiple offices. So it ranges.
What's your range for the seed level? Is it like a few $100,000, or like what kind of range do you guys working with your investment level?
It's more, I don't think it's so much financial as it is about the value of the investment from a strategic perspective. So like to put this in a very big scope without getting too specific, let's say, for example, you're a seed company and you have one market for your product and you're looking at partnering with Verizon, which is like a nationwide or global company. Then we may not be able to partner with you if you're only in one market because there's just not a lot of synergy there. So like that's a good example. We'd like to be a little more developed than just at the very beginning. But so our seed stage investments are probably bigger than your typical seed stage investment might be. That's why we have our accelerators. So if you're an IoT company, apply for the Techstars IoT Accelerator. Applications are open now.
Welcome to episode 13 of podcast, all the plugs. One of the questions I actually want to know is more on the VC operational side. I don't think a lot of people talk about this, but I'm interested. Like, what is the dynamic with you and your coworkers? Like, what are you guys like? How does it work synergy wise? Like, how do you guys like stay all on the same page? Because you have so many moving parts, and you really don't hear about this often. The VCs.
Yeah, this is a good question. VCs are a lot like startups. Like VCs are typically really small teams. So we're a small team in my group, and we got to get a lot done with a few amount of people. So we stay in sync with each other. We use Slack on the team, and then we also have like a team update call, and everybody owns their part of it, and we pitch in to make each other successful. I don't know if that answers the question or not.
No,
So what are some of the other roles then alongside of you?
Yeah. So the way the ventures team is broken up is we have venture development, which is what I do. And then we also have our investment leads. So our investment leads are the people on the team that are doing the negotiation and writing the checks. And we support those people and we support the portfolio companies. So that could range from helping with due diligence to helping with project management to helping post-investment for new projects that are emerging. And then investment leads, after investment, they usually take a board observer role, and they continue to stay really actively engaged with investment. So I mentioned earlier that we usually will make a follow-on investments for our portfolio companies. Our investment leads stay connected to that company, and it continues to grow.
Nice.
Yeah.
So where's Verizon Ventures going to go? Do you guys have like a 5-year, 10-year roadmap of
Yeah.
what you? So are you able to talk about that, or is that more like private hush hush? I'm curious.
They're going to space.
Yeah.
Was that? Oh, really? That was it? Who's the mind reader now? Eddie? Good job. Damn.
I'm
That's
actually
really impressive. I like it.
I just-
That was great.
I really liked that answer. So I was like, well,
bring
why
me on
not?
board
Let's go to
if you
space. Okay, so I think in all reality, Verizon Ventures is the corporate venture capital world is growing a lot, and we want to be at the top of that world. So we're spending more money. We're looking for more quality investments to make, and we want to be transformational for the company that is Verizon. So in short, I would say watch out.
That's awesome. I love that. Well, one of the things I'll comment on, I don't know too much about the corporate VC side as much as overall the market, but I know I've seen over the last couple of years, every corporation I feel like popping up. Like I know Comcast Ventures exists now. Obviously Google Ventures. I think they're one of the first ones I recognize. And then I also see companies like Disney, which might not do their own necessarily, but they'll partner with Techstars directly into their program. So, do you think it's just the state of the market right now where all these companies want to be involved with like technology software, or do you just think it's an opportunity that corporations are like, we now can leverage this as our own advantage? I'm curious. Like,
don't you think they were doing that prior to this?
Well, you always had acquisitions and stuff. Like corporations always would acquire companies that would work, but now they're not necessarily, they're complementary now versus full-on acquisition, which wasn't always the case 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah. So there is a growth in corporate venture capital. You're right on. And there's a lot of companies that have venture capital arms that you wouldn't necessarily think of as being involved in startups or involved with startups. But I think you have to think about it from a couple different perspectives. So first of all, if you have a really large company and you're not innovating, then you don't have much future. Like that's the reality of it. Sorry, BlackBerry. BlackBerry has some future. They've done some cool things. But yeah, I mean, you think of other examples too outside of BlackBerry. Let me give you some props.
I was just saying, that's worth a lot of props right there. Although the BlackBerry CEO, I'm sure, does not agree with any of us right now.
All right.
In case he's watching.
He's probably listening because he's got nothing better to do.
That's actually a really good point. We just so you know, we just burned any relationship with BlackBerry ever, but I think I'm okay with that.
I still love you, BlackBerry.
She has so much, Verizon's on BlackBerry here, so this is actually very severe.
Actually, I do have a question kind of off of what Josh said. So I know, for you guys, it's very strategic. It's not just, hey, just go invest in companies that can have big returns, right? It speaks back to the bottom line of what Verizon's trying to do. So I would say on the other side, is it like when you guys see like Josh mentioned earlier, Google Ventures, are you guys competing with them, or is it more about the bottom line for the business? Like, does that play a role in what you guys are doing, what you're trying to develop here with Verizon Ventures?
I wouldn't say competition. I would say we're complementary. So typically when we invest, we'll co-invest with traditional VCs and other strategic VCs. And in a way, the venture capital will be competitive. So VCs can try to get in on the same deal, and there's only so many investors that can get in on a deal. But I would say that's probably not typically the scenario, because when you get an investment, you have a relationship with the investor, you have a relationship with the founder, whoever else from the company is making the decision. So usually it's not competitive in that environment. But like when we look at corporate venture capital, in a way, we look at Google and other big corporate venture capital arms like Intel, for example, as a benchmark of some of the ways that we want to be.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I know one of the things Verizon did recently was their rebrand over the last, not necessarily rebrand, but updated logo identity. So I'm curious, and this kind of goes to a macro view, which is how much of overall Verizon will dictate your day to day. Like, have you ever had Verizon, the corporation, come to you we want you guys focusing more on these type of companies, or do they give you a little bit more flexibility, saying, hey, listen, you guys do what's best as long as it fits in this right criteria of make us money and build synergy partnerships that can help us? How much give or take does a corporation as a corporate VC give you, or is there any limitations that you have to deal with like just a hierarchy system like any other corporation?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm a Verizon employee. Like when I get a paycheck, it's coming from Verizon, right? So it doesn't say Verizon Ventures on my paycheck; it says Verizon on my paycheck. And Verizon Ventures exists to provide value for Verizon. So I would say we're really lucky because we report into Marnie Walden, who's the head of product and new business innovation for Verizon, and Roy Chestnut, who does chief of strategy for Verizon. And both of those people are extremely innovative leaders that I'm really glad that I've even get to meet, much less work for them. So in terms of like having a negative corporate experience, I wouldn't say that it is. I would say that we're lucky because we get to be part of the team that helps Verizon navigate into the future. And we're working for leaders within Verizon that are really innovative and thoughtful in their own way.
How engaged are they when it comes to your guys' day-to-day? Do you have like a monthly meeting situation, or are they just on call, or are they even more hands-on? Like how much like engagement do you get with like that hierarchy?
For me personally, I'm not super engaged with them, but other parts of my team are. So they take a engaged role when we make an investment, for example. So like in terms of the amount of the investment and whether, the investment details. So I mentioned the venture forum earlier as one area where we bring new types of innovation around different themes into the Verizon executive leadership team, and they would be there as part of that event. We'll definitely, I'll be in the same room and get feedback from them live on what they thought of a certain company or a certain type of technology. But like from a day-to-day perspective, it's not like we're texting or on a call together or anything.
Does being a public company complicate anything for you guys with a VC aspect of it, or does it really make no difference?
I'm not really sure. I think that other people on our team would have more of an opinion on it.
Got it. I was just very curious about that because that's one of the things I always think about corporate VCs. Like, that's something different versus being like, you're an Andreessen Horowitz and everyone's just using their own money into a pot like mindset. So, gotcha. So here's one I'm curious to ask, which is if for those entrepreneurs or companies listening to us who just want to pitch to a VC overall, it doesn't have to be necessarily you guys, but they've never done it before or they haven't been very successful. Outside of the kind of tips about like pitching and like executing correctly there, finding the right like VCs to talk to, is there any like practical things you could tell people like these are some of the things we highly recommend that can help give you a better success rate or help you find the better opportunities versus anything else, just like the same patterns most people do day in and day out, outside of course pitching when you're on your phone during
Wait, I missed the very beginning of what you said. What was the very beginning?
So outside
what's the number one tip or something?
So basically like outside of the context we already went over, which is like pitching, not pitching in appropriate times or finding the right partner, understanding type of VCs you want to talk to. Like, let's say someone listening to this knows a VC they want to talk to, or maybe even have that opportunity. Like, they have that at bat pretty much. Like, what are some of the practical advice you would give to taking advantage of that, giving yourself the highest chance for success? Like, what are the things you would look for as just a VC that people listening to this could use as their own practicality to their own pitch, to their own?
Yeah. Okay. So on top of what I said earlier about do your homework, whether you're meeting with a corporate VC or a traditional VC, do your homework. So look at the companies they've already invested in. Look at the portfolio. Most venture capital arms, even traditional or corporate, will have a thesis on their webpage, and they'll have like broken out which team members work on what part of investments, whether it's like security or apps, e-commerce, whatever. So go find out if the person you're talking to has the breadth and depth of wisdom in order to be able to judge your company appropriately. Once you've done your research and you feel really confident. So let's say, for example, you have a startup and you're like, this is money right here. Then just prep for the conversation like you would normally. And then I would also say it's a sales conversation in that you're selling yourself and you're selling your startup, but it's a relationship. If you take money from that investor, you're going to have to continue to work with that investor long term. So in a way, you're sizing them up just like they're sizing you up. So don't go into the conversation like completely ready to take whatever terms they provide or completely like open to their feedback to change your business model. You're coming in with a product which is your company, right? So you should have a backbone around the value that your company has and what the VC is going to benefit from by putting their money into your company.
I actually think that can't be stated enough how many people I hear who are actively looking for VCs or even clients of ours that we have to talk to, which is you find a VC is pretty much a partner for life because they're owning a part of your company.
Right.
That is not just, I think people, and I don't mean this in a negative context here, but I feel like people think two things. One, raising VC money is easier than it actually is, which is actually it's going to take time. Like, I think people underestimate how long it takes and what you have to do. But two, I also think they underestimate just how big of a deal that is, because you hear about deals every day now on TechCrunch. It's almost been like romanticized raising money as that's a milestone. But the reality is, I think it's a dialogue that's important to have. This is a true business transaction.
Right.
And there's real monetary investment and risk involved with it, and understanding what you're doing. Like, when, for example, you're going to build a $100 million company, but you gave up 30% of your equity. You literally gave up $30 million of equity, plus board seats, plus voting rights, plus any of that type of advantage. Now, the offset is you find the right partner, the right money, you can get to that point, or you can scale, or you have the complementary, which you otherwise couldn't have. But I feel like just because of how romanticized the VC market currently is, that a lot of people aren't having these conversations, and you see people who are raising money for unnecessary reasons. And I think it's translating to kind of, I'm sure you've probably been noticing it more recently, the down rounds that are happening, less companies IPOing, these type of scenarios, because I think we as just a market industry have kind of put too much emphasis on that versus the actual business goals, growing revenue, growing profitability, growing like a foundation that you can scale off of. So hopefully that my context here makes sense, but that's just my thought process over the last maybe 12 to 18 months I've been noticing overall in the market.
Yeah.
So Eddie Dan, I'm losing train of thought here, man. I just want to offer another call. I don't know. Earlier,
okay.
You know what?
I called one of our team members.
I decided to take over. This is my podcast now, and you guys can go with that.
Eddie Contento.
gonna run the
Any
show.
questions? All right, so run the show. Wrap it up for us. What other questions you guys have?
I don't have any other questions. So Dan, if you have anything you want to close with, I think this will be a good time to do it.
Well, I hate to do this, but no, not plug myself. To everyone relax. was plugging Christy. I know you mentioned, where can people get in touch with you? Where can they find you? Verizon Ventures, which is terribly dangerous, I know, for anyone in investment. But if you are more than welcome to tell people where they can find you out at.
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at I'm Christy Pitts. I am Christy Pitts. You can find me on LinkedIn at Christy Pitts. You can find me on VerizonVentures.com, as well as the rest of the Verizon Ventures team, our portfolio and our investment thesis, and our blog, and our events that are upcoming, and past events, and past blog posts. So like I mentioned earlier, if you're looking to connect with Verizon Ventures, make sure you do your homework. And that's it.
Cool.
So-
We'll definitely have to hang out next time Josh and I are in Oakland.
Yes. And we can celebrate the Sharks winning the cup.
So I was actually going to ask.
That's
two,
funny.
I have two, and this one's going to be spoilery, one of them, but two, which is just we'll end it on a pop culture reference. One, what is your Stanley Cup matchup? And I know you're going to say Sharks are going to win, but what is your matchup? And two, what do you predict to happen this season on Game of Thrones? Since we're going to end it on that note.
Okay, so I think it's going to be Sharks. I don't know. I think the Rangers.
Just say it. Just
Rangers?
No.
The Rangers are already eliminated. They're already eliminated, though, the Rangers. She's like, I'm picking a hockey team that I know.
Anything that's not the Blackhawks, pretty much.
Just say it. Just everyone say it. Just everyone collectively say the Blackhawks are going to be in the finals.
Sorry, I can't say it.
You know what sucks is the only team that can eliminate the Blackhawks was eliminated in the first round because of the Sharks. So the Kings are the only team that can dethrone the Blackhawks.
Peace out, Kings. Peace
good
out.
episode.
Maybe next year.
Yeah.
Okay, Game of Thrones. I don't know. I can't predict that either. Let me think.
I haven't even
Oh.
seen the show, but you can predict death from what you guys told me.
Okay, I've got my money on Brienne. Brienne
Nice.
of Tarth.
I saw an article today saying she's like, actually, it's Dave McClure for 500 Startups. He said he's the one that shared it. Everyone's talking about Game of Thrones right now. He was playing like Brienne is the most underrated character on the show, and
Yeah.
so I have to say I feel like the season's going to be very boring compared to the last few seasons. I feel like it's a build-up season.
Oh, really?
I just feel like doesn't
I
it
don't
feel
know.
like everyone's everywhere around the world right now? They have to somehow connect. So
Yeah.
I feel like this entire season's building up for next season when they all connect. Where it's like, yeah, this is kind of how I feel right now. Like this is just a setup season. There's gonna be drama and excitement and stuff,
Yeah.
yes, but I just feel like there's so many plots that need to kind of start connecting now, and that's what's gonna be all season, the next 9 episodes.
Yeah.
We should do a Game
So-
of Thrones episode.
We should.
We should.
do, like,
We
a,
should.
a season finale like discussion. That would be awesome.
Game of Thrones. Hey, I know we're trying to wrap up, but I wanted to bring up one more topic before we close out. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course. Bring it on.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Eddie's
Get out
like,
of here.
Eddie's got to go to Bangkok. Like, he doesn't have time. So
She's awesome.
the last topic that I think is really important that we didn't talk about so far today is diversity in tech. So this is really
Great
important
topic.
for Verizon and Verizon Ventures. The way that Verizon Ventures, so Verizon addresses that with like several different ways, but Verizon Ventures specifically, we sponsored the Women's Entrepreneur Festival recently in New York. We sponsor Grand Central Tech, 2X in Tech. We're looking for more sponsorship opportunities and other ways to help women entrepreneurs and diverse entrepreneurs. So people that would typically be underrepresented during investment conversations. And I just want to put that out there and also challenge you guys, because when I was prepping to come on today, I was looking at your podcast and who's been speaking so far, and I think you guys could use a little more diversity.
We're definitely trying. It's hard, actually. It's hard to find people that are willing, let alone because I think the numbers are.
Well, they're skewed against us, that's for sure.
We had actually an episode with Wayne Sutton, which is one of our original first episodes. He's an African-American founder of 2 companies, now runs BuildUp.vc and Tech Inclusion, which also focuses on minorities, women, things like that. And we were actually having even a more detailed discussion, which is this scenario, which is a real scenario. Last year we had basically you average out to 100 job applications for a company. One was a woman. One.
Yeah.
And you run into this question as a growing company, which is, do you hire the woman by default for diversity purposes, or do you just look for the best talent, but statistically that's probably going to be a man because you have a 99-to-1 ratio? And that's a problem right now in the space, right? Like, I think that is a severe problem. So one of the things is I'm part of the New Jersey Tech Council board, and then I'm also part of the Big Brothers Big Sisters program here in Philly for the Entrepreneur Program. And my belief is the only way to fix it is you can't fix it from the top bottom, because the top's kind of mature. You have to focus back on a lower level, like young children, students, elementary, and you have to really just kind of focus more there on everyone early on and build it up, because I feel like that's the only true long-term solution versus focusing on the top down versus on the bottom up. So, and that's just my belief, and I could be completely wrong, but that's just from my understanding of how human behavior is. It's the only way, like, to rectify this real problem that exists right now in the space.
Yeah, and I've reached out to a handful of women to be on the podcast and have not been able to close any of those. Like, nobody's followed up with me or haven't been able to lock down a time. Like, it's the numbers, I guess, don't go in our favor.
Yeah, so we're not perfect either at Verizon Ventures. I'm one of 3 women on the team, and we're not perfect at Verizon. We have a lot of work to do, but it's a really important area for us. And I would challenge you guys to look at it. There's some really interesting stuff that's been done at the Harvard School of Gender Studies. So without like going too far into it, you guys know in the orchestra they started putting up a screen, so they could they can't tell whether or not the people that are playing the instruments are men or women, and their numbers went from like 20% women to 50% women because they were just judged on the quality of the music instead of letting gender bias get in there. So there's some cool stuff you can find there, but also I would say, please, like, I'd be happy to help with my network to get more women on the podcast.
Absolutely.
And I think it's something where like a right tide raises all boats, right? So we can solve this.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
We're obviously open to it. There's nothing.
Cool.
So that's awesome. No, it's definitely, I think, that's one way is I also think talking about it, which is probably something that I think this conversation, a lot of people feel, you can feel the awkwardness coming out of it. I look at like, you have to be open about these tough discussions. Otherwise, nothing gets done either. So, but yeah, any introductions you have that you think might be relevant for the show, and any awesome women listening to the show, or just anyone of like, that's, even though I'm a white man, any non-white men pretty much listening to this that have a great story you want to be on, or white men, because, we are also still trying to be diverse by equal for everyone. So pretty much, if anyone listening to this, did you think the bill, reach out. It's like, there's no way. Like, how do you do this?
You're interesting.
Yeah,
like,
but
we just want viewers. That's all.
It's just like, how do you figure out? It's just a true question. Like, how do you diversify without like becoming like too politically incorrect and saying something to piss someone off? Which I'm sure I've pissed off someone 8 times on the show.
Only Dan, because he's mad that the Rangers are going to win the eliminated team.
I'm calling Shan right now, the VP of Tech for Blab, to get the downvote and add down for me. Just downvote all the way.
Downvote.
This is
No,
awesome.
I think it's true. Like, I think the thing is, I wanted to bring it up. It's important for Verizon Ventures. It's important in the work world, and it's something I'm passionate about in my personal life too. And I think we can make a difference if we say that we want to, and we put some action behind it. So
Totally agree. No, it actually, if you're interested, I'll probably have to connect you off the show. There's a few initiatives here in Philly, I know, which is focusing on like girls to code, like on like young children in like inner city schools, on how like to learn development, get involved in entrepreneurship. Like I said, I'm involved with Big Brothers Big Sisters inaugural entrepreneur program worldwide.
Cool.
Which is connecting entrepreneurs with littles that want to become entrepreneurs, and instead of going to college, want to go and create your own mobile app or startup. And in Philly, as I'm sure you can know, it's a very diverse city, so it's not as like just like white dominated men here as it like would be in some other cities. I'm not going to name any names, San Francisco. So, but the reality is true. You know, that's the idea, is like how if you can build in the bottom level and like work up, I just feel like that's going to solve it so much easier. Because the second I talked to my sisters about this, I'll leave it on this note, which is I have two younger sisters who, they're not that separated from me, but I asked them like, why didn't you get involved in code when like there was classes about in high school and stuff like that? And their answer was, yeah, there's 20 guys in that class. Why am I going to go to that class? Or like, it was marketed as a kid as like only tech geeks, nerds, usually just guys that were shut-ins would be the ones doing it. Like, but that was the perception. Like that was the PR and the brand, and that's a huge thing. It's the reason why people buy certain products and stuff like that too. It's the same exact thing.
We need to raise our sons and daughters the same, equally.
Great. So,
all right.
Cool.
Thank you for letting me wrap on that note.
Thank you so much, Chrissy.
So I'll do the final spiel, unless Eddie, since it's your show, you want to end the show and do the ending notes. No, Dan, you are not getting any. You're not ending it, Dan, because you've had enough like shout out plugs in this episode. So
just want to say thank you, Chrissy, for being on the show with us. Everybody download Get 20, and we will see you guys next episode.
All right, later.
Thank you.